Hello everyone. Today my teammates and me will present to you our research study. Our topic is an analysis of ransomware attack, threat and detection technique in the context of cybersecurity. Moving on to slide number 2. We will cover the following topics in our presentation today: introduction to ransomware, transmission, analysis and detection technique, timeline of known attacks, attack prevention and mitigation strategies, and conclusion. Moving on to the slide number 3. Introduction to ransomware. Ransomware is a type of malicious software that infects, encrypts, and blocks access of victims' computer files and system until a sum of ransom is paid. The victim's data restoring without destruction of original context and privacy of data is not guaranteed until even after post-payment. It is upon the discretion of an attacker to give a description key to the victim to unlock and attempt the restore of his data. Ransomware attack is classified as one of the most dangerous and notorious cybersecurity threat affecting individual personnel as well as business organizations, leaving them unprepared, vulnerable, and causing disruptions in their activities. Ransomware continues to remain the top data breaching techniques in cybercrime. The main purpose of the attacker is to extort fast money from its victim by making them vulnerable. Moving on to the next slide. Transmission technique. Ransomware is usually delivered using silent transmission techniques of social engineering, exploit kits. These are special kind of programs designed to attract user on a certain website. Often users click on this malicious code which redirects them to the exploited page content unnoticed. Malicious emails, links, and attachments. Often, emails are purposefully infected and injected with suspicious links. Targeted victims are often employees of an organization in this particular technique. This email delivers a sense of urgency to the users, which triggers them clicking on these links, targeting automatic download of ransomware. Removable media. Connecting infected media is not only limited to the infecting local system, but it can spread across the entire network of connection. Malvertising. This process is a form of malicious advertising aiming to compromise the system and blackmail for extortion of money in return. Some malvertising demonstrates the user to be shown as a winner of a lucky draw and ask them to click on the link or tab for further verification in order to receive the prize. Upon successfully luring the victim, ransomware files are downloaded and the system ends up getting blocked. Drive-by download. This technique of transmission involves automatic download without users' content and knowledge. In this method, attacking vector is malicious website, quickly analyzes the vulnerabilities of users, and executes the malvertises in targeting ways. Self-propagation. The newer strains of ransomware are designed more sophisticatedly. They hold the capacity to self-propagate across the entire network organization, moving to another devices connected on that network. In all of this situation of transmission, files are locked and kept hostage until the ransom is paid. Moving on, our teammate Harry will continue the presentation from the next slide.
Hi, it's me, Hari. So I'm going to explain some detection techniques for the malware attacks. To protect your system from malware, malicious activity must be detected as early as possible before it does any harmful damage. The goal of my presentation is to provide existing methods that are used to detect and analyze malware. Our first method is static analysis, which analyzes a computer program to find problems, and it does not require code to execute the system. Generally, static analysis is performed on the source code of the program with tools that convert the program into an abstract syntax tree that helps to understand the code structure and then find problems in it. However, the static approach is vulnerable to many evasion techniques and might not be effective against sophisticated and encrypted code. And the next technique is dynamic analysis, which works differently than static analysis. The process is that first execute the code or script in the system, then analyze the code carefully, and especially observe what code does and how it impacts the system. Uh, Dynamic analysis use sandbox tool, which execute the code, and it reduces the time that would take to reverse engineer a file to discover the malicious code. The challenge with dynamic analysis is that the attackers are really smart and they know the sandboxes are out there, so they have become very good at detecting them. Another technique is the volatile memory forensics. This methodology is for analyzing the RAM of operating system. It has two steps: acquisition and analysis. So what is acquisition? Um, Acquisition is the process of converting data stored in physical and external storage device into memory dump file. When properly performed, volatile memory acquisition does not leave any footprints in the system. The second step is volatile memory forensics. This is the analysis technique designed to extract useful information from the memory dump file and detect the presence of malware and its behavior. Um, Another last one is side channel analysis, which is a methodology to analyze electronic device by monitoring the physical power consumption and electromagnetic emission, execution time, counting number of packets transmission, internal CPU events. So it was originally used for cryptanalysis. Cryptanalysis is the process of extracting private keys used during encryption in microcircuit devices. It is also called as a side channel attack. Moving on, Abigail will present the slide.
Ransomware has had a very decorated history. So the first attack was launched in 1989 when Dr. Joseph Popp, a disgruntled AIDS researcher, distributed 20,000 floppy disks that supposedly had a survey on it, but instead those disks held a ransomware Trojan that was armed with symmetric cryptography. After that first attack, there was a pretty long break. We saw a couple of small attacks between 2005 and 2013. In 2014, the uptick really started. So with CryptoWall, which was the next generation of crypto locker, ransomware began demanding Bitcoin for the first time. Also in 2014, Kohler was launched as the first locker worm, meaning that it spread independently. CTB Locker was another first, and it communicated with a command and control server. Finally, the third first in 2014 was Simple Locker, which targeted Android phones and kept end users' files hostage until ransom was paid. The first big attack in 2015 also targeted Android phones. This malware, however, could actually change people's phone pins, rendering the entire device useless until ransom was rendered. TeslaCrypt targeted online gamers. This particular malware doubled its demand if victims did not pay quickly enough, and it targeted small, easily accessible files. Chimera used even more advanced social engineering techniques than any of its predecessors and really heightened the threat here. This is the first piece of ransomware that threatened to dox victims if they did not comply. Low level 4 was a manual attack where hackers remoted into servers, mapped the machine's drives, and adapted their ransomware based on what they learned from that data set, and then the ransomware deployed. In 2016, we start to see a concerning trend where the ransomware began targeting organizations who had highly sensitive data or had the financial means to render a significant payment. So Lockheed in 2016 spread via aggressive social engineering campaigns, and it targeted major health and hospital systems across multiple states in America. In 2007, WannaCry attacked nearly 250,000 machines across 150 countries. This single attack caused $4 billion in losses globally. It's thought that this piece of ransomware was actually developed by the NSA before it was stolen and then deployed maliciously. And in 2018, Riot was launched. This piece of malware employs special military algorithms, and it uses both symmetric and asymmetric encryption to attack Microsoft systems, usually at large public entities. In a single attack, one Riot victim paid nearly $35 million. Cybersecurity experts agree that proactive measures are the best measures. So as far as training, most ransomwares use phishing. So it's important that IT experts train end users to spot problematic emails and files. Redundancy. Organizations are only compelled to pay ransom if the information that is held hostage is absolutely irreplaceable. So if you have backups in place, they are high quality and they're accessible, there's really no irreplaceable data. The next is to just make it harder to get in. The FBI recommends multi-factor authentication, and they recommend prompt updates and patches, and where feasible, they recommend that organizations secure or retire legacy systems. Possibly most important is that organizations should develop and practice disaster recovery plans. These are incredibly detailed plans, so it's important that the results of these plans be put to the test. So practiced in low stress environments to make sure that all of the procedures are sound. And for PC users, it's important that you understand the registry well. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment. In the unfortunate instance where your organization is attacked, there are a number of reactive mitigation strategies. First is to isolate the infected machines, to take them completely off the network as soon as they are identified as affected. If there are devices that have been reached but not entirely corrupted, it is recommended to turn the power completely off to stop that spread. All backups should be taken offline to make sure that the damage is not done to any of those data sources. So it's very important to protect that redundancy by making that information completely unavailable. Next, contact law enforcement. Smaller organizations and individuals are not likely to report ransomware attacks, which is why on the previous slide, the timeline stops a couple of years ago. And it's because very recent data about these attacks really isn't readily available. So it's important that you call in the experts immediately. There are consultants in the private sector who can help, but most importantly, the FBI. The task really is to attempt to secure as much data as possible. And then once that is done, it's important that passwords are updated and registry values are deleted. So the registry is a part of the Windows operating system that you've probably been warned against touching. It includes myriad raw data that can be used and weaponized by attackers. The registry is a hierarchical database, and it contains data that's critical for the operation of Windows, its applications, and its services. If hackers can access it, the registry will provide information that, like I said, can be weaponized. Some forms of malware even modify the registry. So it's helpful that you know the registry in its normal state so that if you are attacked, it is easier to identify if the registry has been modified. And if so, that can be deleted and the malware can be removed directly.
To conclude, ransomware is a growing epidemic to the individuals as well as organizations. The existence and usage of cryptocurrencies fueling the ransomware attacks, the lack of strict internet security policies and enforcement of threat to cybersecurity is must. With the growth of digitalized data and usage of enhanced cloud-based technologies, we need policies, rules, regulations, and punishments to curb cybersecurity crimes like ransomware attack. A lot of individuals and organizations do not disclose the details of ransomware attack to avoid embarrassment and reputation loss, thereby limiting their research to biased information. There is an urgent need for strong and up-to-date cybersecurity awareness. Ransomware spreads in many types of ways. Regardless of being a victim to ransomware attack or not, users and organizations should maintain a strong backup and monitor their sharing and security policies thoroughly, along with protecting their system by constantly learning and implementing multi-level cybersecurity techniques. Moving on to the references slide. We have used scholarly, moving on to the references slide, we have used scholarly articles to do our research. Platforms like Web of Science and Zotero were used. These are only a part of our references. Our references can be found in the final report. And moving on to the end, we would like to end by thanking you to take your time in watching our presentation. Thank you so much.